Good day, beautiful people. Today we will take a look at your renal calculi or your renal stones or your nephrolithiasis. Anyway, accordingly, only about 0.1% of the population develops renal calculi. But then in the United States, your renal calculi is common, affecting one in every 11 individuals. Again, in the United States, renal stones is common and it affects one in every individuals. In Western industrialized countries, upper renal stones or upper stones or kidney stones or renal stones, they are more common comparing it with the bladder stones. So, okay, in Western industrialized countries, again, upper or renal stones or kidney stones are more common, and your bladder stones, they are less common accordingly. Anyway, uh, what you call this, your kidney stones or your renal stones or your sige, urinary stones, the development is affected by a lot of factors like metabolic disturbances, environmental, as well as genetic disturbances. And yes, okay, your development of kidney stones is multifactorial. It is multifactorial accordingly. Okay, that is for your renal stones. Anyway, let's take a look at them one. clinical findings, of course, in the laboratory, hematuria, okay, or microscope or hematuria, red blood cells in the urine, okay. This, what we call this, hematuria is caused by ulceration, okay, ulceration of the renal stones. Ulceration, it will ulcerate the, what you call this, it will ulcerate the tube where it passes, causing release of blood, causing bleeding and hematuria in in the urine. Okay, and please note that your small stones can pass from the renal pelvis to the ureters, and in the ureters, they can cause obstruction, and that they can cause obstruction and produce intense pain. Okay, and this intense pain or severe pain here is referred to as renal colic. Again, renal colic happens if small stones are passed from the renal pelvis to the ureters. And in the ureters, they obstruct the tube, okay, causing severe pain, okay, which begins in the kidney region and radiates forward and downward toward the abdomen, genitalia, or to the legs accordingly. Okay, that is for your colic. Renal colic. Aside from those, the patients with renal calculi often experience nausea, vomiting, sweating, and frequent urge to urinate. Of course, if there is a what you call this blockage or obstruction, then oliguria is also seen. Oliguria is also experienced. Okay? Please note that what you call this, please note that when your large stones are unable to pass into the ureter, they will remain in the renal pelvis. Okay, and what you call this, they will remain in the renal pelvis. Okay, and what you call this, they will remain in the renal pelvis and they will continue to grow there. Okay, they will continue to grow there. And of course, okay, presence of renal stones in the renal pelvis or in the bladder may be revealed by trauma, by the trauma that they produced. And yes, usual hematuria. Okay, and so usual trauma, bleeding. Okay, they will ulcerate, which will produce or which will cause hematuria, which will cause hematuria. Okay. And yes, as for the what you call this, the treatment for this one. Okay, treatment, you have your lithotripsy, your extracorporeal shockwave lithotripsy. Okay, extracorporeal shockwave lithotripsy. Okay, it employs high energy shockwave to break the stones in the upper urinary tract. Okay, it employs again your extracorporeal shockwave lithotripsy. Okay, employs high energy shockwave to break the stones in the upper urinary tract. If if the urine, if the urine or if the stone is trapped in the lower third of the ureter or in the bladder, cytoscopy can be utilized to remove the stones. Okay, again, if the renal stone is trapped in the lower third of the ureter or in the urinary bladder, cytoscopy can be utilized to remove the bladder. But then, if cytoscopy is unsuccessful, or let's say, what we call this, ESW or your lithotripsy is unsuccessful, percutaneous nephrolithotomy is performed. Percutaneous nephrolithotomy is performed accordingly. Let's take a look at your gross examination of renal calculi. First thing is to wash. Okay, first thing is to wash. You remove the blood, the mucus, or whatever that is present in the stone. And then after that, you place in a beaker and cover with several layers of gauze. Held it firmly in place with rubber bands, and then wash under cold running water. After that, you drain, remove the gauze carefully, and you dry the stone and the beaker in an oven. After drying, you rinse the tiny stones with water from a squeeze bottle. This time, do not utilize running water. Okay, after drying, you rinse the tiny stones with water from a squeeze bottle, not with running water. And then you record the dimension. You record the dimension. After that, you note the color and the texture. You note the color and the texture. The stone may be photographed for recording purposes. And after that, you examine the interior. How are you going to examine the interior? You can cut, you can saw, you can break the stone to examine the interior. Okay, yeah. And yes, once you examine the interior, you please note whether a foreign body may have acted as a nuclei for its formation. You describe the color of the interior as well as the texture, and then if layers are present, okay, in the interior. Okay, if layers are present in the interior. And yes, after that, you pulverize or you powderize using a mortar and pestle. And then after pulverizing or powderizing it, you examine you or you perform perform chemical exam. You perform chemical exam. Anyway, please note that asymptomatic stones are sometimes found, and most of your kidney stones are radiopaque except for the pure uric acid and the xanthine. Okay, again, most of your kidney stones are radiopaque except for uric acid stones and pure xanthine. The xanthine here is a rare. Okay, kidney stone. Your cystine stones, they are opaque because of their sulfur content. Your cystine stones are opaque because of their sulfur content. Okay, so you have your calcium oxalate stones. Of course, your calcium oxalate stones, again, please note that they are the major constituent of your what do you call this? They are the major constituent of your kidney stones. Anyway, your calcium oxalate stones, they are very hard and they often have a dark color. Very hard and dark color, and they have a rough surface. Okay, they have a rough surface. Of course, this one is what do you call this? Uh, Correlated with oxaluria and complete carbohydrate metabolism and excessive glycogen breakdown. For your cystine stones, they are yellow-brown in color and they are greasy. And this is the this is the least common renal stones. Of course, your calcium oxalate, they are the most common renal stone. Okay, and yes, your cystine stone is associated with amino aciduria and heavy metal nephrotoxicity. Again, as what we said earlier, this is the least common at 1 to 2% of your renal stones. 1 to 2%. And then okay, you have your phosphate stones. Your phosphate stones, they are pale and friable, and they are persistently seen in alkaline urine. Phosphate stones, they are persistently seen in alkaline urine. And yes, they are associated with urea splitting bacteria. Okay, they are associated with urea splitting bacteria like your magnesium, calcium phosphate, your triple phosphate stones. And then you have your uric acid and urate stones, your uric acid and urate stones. Okay, your uric acid and urate stones, they are yellow to brownish red and are moderately hard. And yes, associated with gout, polycythemia, and leukemia, as well as lymphoma, liver disease, acid isohydria, theophylline, and thiazide medication. Please note kasi that in individuals with cancer or what we call this, individuals undergoing chemotherapy. Okay, individuals undergoing chemotherapy, they are trying to break down cells. Cells are broken down. Okay, the nuclei are broken down, releasing nucleic acid. Releasing nucleic acid. And please note what is rich in your nucleic acid? Purine bases. Purine bases. And yes, your uric acid, sources of your uric acid actually are purines.
Okay, and so something that is rich in purine. Okay, that is for uric acid and your urate stones. Okay, and yes, other types of analysis for your renal calculi, what you call this X-ray will provide a more comprehensive analysis. Okay, X-ray will provide a more comprehensive analysis. Okay, chemical and X-ray crystallography. This X-ray here will provide a more comprehensive analysis. Your electron beam analysis and mass spectroscopy are also utilized. Okay, they are also utilized. And yes, again, as what we said earlier, you determine the size and the weight. Okay, and then you identify. I mean, yes, you determine the size. You can either tell it as sand, gravel, or stone. Of course, sand if it's small, and then if it's larger than sand, then it's gravel. Then if it's larger than gravel, then it's stone. Okay, pulverize and check the homogeneity and nucleation the small portion of the stone ash over a burner. If entirely consumed in the flame, then it is organic. It is made of organic materials. If does not change on ashing, it is mostly inorganic. Accordingly, it is mostly inorganic. Okay, you have here your test for uric acid, uric acid for type of your stone. Okay, you have your uric acid. The reagent utilized is sodium carbonate and the uric acid reagent accordingly. Okay, and the positive result is deep blue color. Carbonates and oxalates, reagents, hydrochloric acid, formation of tiny bubbles as the positive result. Okay, if it is made of carbonate or oxalate, then put a drop of HCl. If tiny bubbles are seen, then you have then the positive result, sorry, is formation of tiny bubbles. And then you have your phosphates. Okay, ammonium molybdate and nitric acid as the reagent utilized, employed for chemical examination of these ones. Of course, for if phosphate is the constituent, then you will have a distinct yellow color after heating. And then you have your calcium and your cysteine. Sodium chloride, hydrochloric acid, and then sodium hydroxide, and then ammonium hydroxide as well as sodium cyanide, sodium and sodium nitrochloride. Please note, pakitanggal na lang po yung R, isang R dito. Lagay niyo na lang po dito. Anyway, the positive result is for sodium chloride, white clouds. Okay. Sodium hydroxide and hydrochloric acid, white cloud. Okay. If for cysteine, okay, beet red color. Okay. Cysteine, ammonium ammonium hydroxide, cyanide, and this one will give you a bit red color. For calcium, this one. Okay, magnesium. Okay, for magnesium, you have hydrochloric acid, sodium hydroxide, para-nitrobenzene, azoresorcinol, and sodium hydroxide. And the positive result is a blue color. Okay, magnesium as well as ammonium. Magnesium ammonium phosphate. Okay. Hydrochloric acid, sodium hydroxide, para-nitrobenzene, azoresorcinol, and sodium hydroxide. And the positive result is blue color. Let's take a look at your malignancies. Malignancy actually in the urinary bladder. Okay, you have here your nuclear matrix proteins or your NMPs. They are actually utilized for detection of bladder cancer. Okay, they are utilized for detection of bladder cancer. They are otherwise referred to as nuclear skeletal proteins and nuclear mitotic apparatus proteins. Your NMPs, again, they are otherwise referred to or known as nuclear skeletal proteins and nuclear mitotic apparatus proteins. Please note that they are what you call this. These NMPs, these nuclear matrix proteins, they are needed. Okay, they are needed for correct mitotic spindle formation. They are needed for correct mitotic spindle formation. Okay, that is for the normal one. But then, in case of in case of malignancy, these NMPs are increased. Okay, these NMPs are increased. Again, in case of malignancy, these nuclear matrix proteins, they are increased. You have here your NMP22, your nuclear matrix protein 22. This one is best studied, the best studied NMP, and it is strongly associated with transitional cell carcinoma of the bladder. It is again, it is your NMP22 is strongly associated with transitional cell carcinoma of the bladder. Your nuclear matrix protein 22, the function is what you call this? The function is it is involved in chromosomal separation during mitosis. But then in case of there is an increase in NMP22. In case of malignant cells, there is an increase of NMP22. NMP22 is 10 to 20 times greater in malignant transitional epithelial cells. Okay, NMP22 is what we call this. NMP22 is 10 to 20 times greater in malignant transitional epithelial cells accordingly. Okay, that is for your, and again, your nuclear matrix protein or your NMP22 is associated with transitional cell carcinoma of the bladder. Okay, as for, okay, yes, as for what they call this, as for microscopic findings, as for microscopic findings, there are atypical mononuclear cells, or there are atypical mononuclear cells with enlarged irregular hyperchromatic nuclei, and sometimes they contain a prominent nuclei that occurs singly or as tissue fragments. Okay, as for microscopic findings, atypical mononuclear cells with enlarged irregular hyperchromatic nuclei and sometimes contains prominent nucleoli that occur singly or as tissue fragments. Those are microscopic findings for malignancy or urinary bladder malignancy. Aside from that, neutrophils, erythrocytes, and transitional epithelial cells are seen in the urine also. Okay, again, neutrophils, transitional epithelial cells, and erythrocytes are also seen in the urine of individuals with urinary bladder malignancy. Okay.
Thank you so much. This has been Gael, reminding you to live fully, love deeply, love often, keep learning, and never forget to enjoy the ride. And as you move forward, may you always choose curiosity over fear, kindness over convenience, and growth over comfort. And yes, you celebrate your small victories, you honor your quiet moments, and trust that every step, no matter how uncertain, shapes the story you are meant to tell. The world is wide, your time is precious, and your journey is uniquely yours. So go make it extraordinary. Thank you. Thank you so much, and see you around.